little bit anticlimactic, but you get the idea. It's a funny slice of life. This next one, though, and I'm glad we have our peak stream viewership for this. This next one is sort of the main event here. The previous, we've been working up to it. I didn't want to immediately like jump into the deep end here, but this is Umris. I have no idea where it comes from or who the author is. It's just a raw text dump that someone saved. I have a suspicion that it became notorious enough that the original author deleted it or something like that. Came closer. He was staring directly into her damp eyes. "I want a child," she whispered, closing her eyes. Bwomp, bwomp. The bombshell drops. Their marriage was struggling the whole time. By the left turn, holy shit. Bird lizard child. Chat just explodes. I can't deal with this bullshit, or we're just getting started. I don't know. Fucking hell. Do I get the Oscar yet? Chris was wearing a black suit with a blue sweater underneath. It fitted his thin and slim shape. Alright, we got Chris pronouns, alright. Leaning over Chris. "Your attempt was failure," Berdly said, walking over Noel, grabbing the back seat off Chris's chair. Berdly felt an ill joy from saying this. Chris was almost quivering in his seat, filled with a sickening smile. Wait, that's the ending. That's the end. What happened? Did I paste it wrong? Shit, it cuts off there. This is maddening. How can it end there?
Umris ends in a cliffhanger, either intentionally or simply because it's unfinished. This likely confused many readers, including Andrew Cunningham, who read it out loud on one of his streams. Eventually, a lone suggestion by a chatter gave him the idea to lend a collaborative effort to finish Umris, mixed with a contest for good measure. The main goal was to create an most likely ending.
Someone made a reference, I don't know if it was a joke or not, to having like an earlier version of their fic where Berdly went to a strip club and Ralsei was there as a stripper and then he realized he was gay. That sounded fucking transcendent, like hallucinatory, but it was cut. Maybe fortunately, maybe unfortunately. That was Shadow of Roserade. Yeah, I didn't hallucinate that. Good.
You think just because you have a more expensive house and a rich wife and a cute little kid that you're better than me.
Berdly roared in Chris's face, his speech smattering itself on the Hunan's nose.
Well, you're not. In fact, you're a jealous piece of shit. You're jealous of my luxurious job, my superior intellect, and my beautiful wife. Meanwhile, you have nothing but dozens of worthless pretty pictures and a wife who doesn't really love you. Chris Dreamer, you are nothing but a two-faced snake.
Berdly finally spat out his long rant, leaving him breathless and red-faced. Chris's face was still only about an inch away from the tip of his beak. It was all he could see. His scarlet-red eyes drilled into the bird's very soul. Berdly grabbed the bottle of wine that stood at the table, and, before anyone could stop him, downed it all in one gulp before tossing it mindlessly into the ground, causing it to shatter. Everyone was too shocked by everything to do anything to stop Berdly as he kept waddling unevenly towards the human that was sat in front of him.
You want to know what I hate the most about you, though?
Berdly asked, his face much too close to Chris's to be considered socially acceptable. The bluebird's eyes were crazed and unfocused. Berdly lost his train of thought as the bottle of wine he had just guzzled had begun to take effect. He felt his stomach grumble at his earlier reckless action. He leaned against the table to catch himself. His brain felt fogged up, and he couldn't think straight.
Berdly, are you alright?
Noelle hesitantly asked, standing up.
Shut up, you harlot!
Berdly shouted back, his voice gurgled.
I'm fine.
Berdly said before falling down, his vision going entirely black. Berdly felt the rough texture of black leather as he woke up. He blinked the blurriness out of his eyes and tried to take in his surroundings. He was laying down haphazardly in the back of a car. His car. Susie was sitting in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel tightly, her head firmly pointed towards the road. Some cheesy modern pop song about breakups or sex or something was playing on the radio. Berdly shuffled, attempting to stand up. But as he did, the car ground to a halt at a stoplight, sending him careening forward, hitting his head on the back of Susie's seat. He yelped in pain.
Good morning, jackass.
Susie snarled sarcastically at him.
I hope you enjoyed your beauty sleep.
Where are we? What's going on?
Berdly asked, disoriented.
Last thing I remember, we were eating dinner at Chris's and
then you went off on Chris and then guzzled the entire bottle of wine at once, despite me telling you specifically not to drink that night. Then you shattered it on the floor before passing out mid-sentence on the floor.
Susie explained. Berdly could see a gnarly expression on her face from the rear view mirror.
And then I had to somehow deflate the situation after that. It was a pain in the ass, but of course I had to be the one to deal with it. You're like a big child.
Susie,
Shut up. I'm not done.
Susie cut him off.
I'm tired of your stupid stunts. You ruined a lot of things for me tonight. Me and Noelle were old friends, Chris too, and you threw it all away in front of me. I don't even want to look at you anymore.
Susie, what are you talking about?
Berdly prodded, the looming feeling of panic beginning to set in. There was a second of silence.
Here's the plan, asshole. I'm driving us home, and then once we're there, I'm gathering up as much of my junk as possible as fast as possible, and then I'm leaving.
Leaving? Susie, you can't.
I can, and I will.
But Susie, where will you be staying?
Noelle offered to let me stay at her place after all the shit you pulled. I don't understand how she managed to find it in her heart for her to do that, but I'm very thankful she did.
Susie, after all you've been through, you're so readily willing to throw me aside like that?
Berdly asked, his voice brimming with soulful betrayal. The traffic light turned green.
Yep.
Susie said before stepping hard on the gas, launching the car forward and tossing Berdly back roughly, causing him to squawk in pain again. He should have probably put on his seatbelt. A desolated Berdly wandered the sweaty, damp streets of New England in the cold night. He had sent Susie 20, no, 30 messages in the past hour, and she hadn't read a single one. It had only been a day since she left him alone in their one-shared big empty house. Yet to Berdly it felt like an eternity. He searched the pockets of his suit, the same he had worn on that fateful day, yesterday, for a cigarette. He pulled out the box and quickly realized he only had one fag left. He grumbled, plucked the fag out of the box and tossed it aside. He spent a few seconds fiddling with the lighter, attempting to light the cigarette.
Hey, hey, hey!
An erratic voice called from an alleyway, echoing almost statically.
All alone on a...
Berdly jumped back, startled and yelped. He looked over to the source of the noise and saw a short man emerging. His jawline was angular and shapely, and his hair was black and slicked back with enough gel to drown in. He was also wearing shadzin that sat unevenly on his long, sharp nose and a black leather jacket like a strange greaser.
Who are you?
The man laughed a grating laugh.
The name's Spamton. Spamton G. Spamton.
The bird squinted.
That can't be your name.
He replied simply. The man laughed again.
Out here on
The streets.
anything can be your name, pal. But that, boy, do I got a deal that'll drive you wild.
A deal?
Berdly asked, suspicious.
I'm sorry, but I don't want anything to do with your illegal business.
Oh, come on.
Big shot.
The man whined, sidestepping in front of the bluebird's path.
You know, when the big ones make my merchandise illegal, it's because it's
Heavenly.
The man opened his coat, revealing an astounding amount of needles, bagged powders, and pill bottles.
Come on.
Big shot.
I know you're down on your
Lucky Charms.
All you need is a little drop of
Heaven.
in you, and you'll be as free as a puppet that cut its string.
The man smiled, yet uncannier.
So, what do you say?
Berdly paused for a moment, seriously considering the suggestion despite himself. After a chilling moment of silence staring at the man's eerie smile, Berdly shook his head and pushed Spamton aside.
I don't want your drugs. Now scram before I decide to call the cops on you.
The drug dealer laughed.
You think I'm afraid?
Of the fuzz.
I've avoided them for years. They've never been able to catch this.
Big shot.
But suit yourself, chicken. I know a lost cause when I see one. Hell, it's part of the job.
The man said before beginning to laugh madly again as he slinked back into the alley he came from. Berdly turned back around, hoping to be able to forget that experience as soon as possible. Before he knew it, he had arrived at his destination, Grilby's bar. He pushed the wooden door open, making the entry bell chime. A fun jazz song emanated from the jukebox in the corner of the room. Berdly scanned the bar for a free spot and found one in one of the stools by the counter. He sat down and waited for a minute for the barkeep to notice him. The fire-headed man behind the counter was cleaning some glasses and plates, not turning around. Berdly slammed his fist hard on the counter to attract his attention.
Hey you, plebeian worker, I would like a drink.
The man finally turned around, looking angry. Berdly stood his ground.
Whoa there. Kid, where are your manners?
The man sitting next to him asked, somewhat humorously. Berdly looked over to him. He was a red bird monster like him, but he had scattered white feathers indicating his age.
I'm not a child, I'm 35.
Berdly replied through gritted teeth. The other bird monster laughed at this. Berdly grew yet more infuriated. Why was everyone laughing at him today?
Could have fooled me with that attitude. Now, this time, try to ask politely. Okay, kid?
Berdly composed himself begrudgingly, staring stony daggers into the barkeep's face.
I would like your strongest alcoholic beverage, good sir.
There was an awkward pause.
Please.
You heard the kid. Grillbs, hook him up with a shot of the good stuff.
The man sitting next to him called out. Berdly squinted frustratingly at him, holding himself back from chewing him out for calling him a kid again. The other man didn't seem to notice his irritation, however. The barkeep walked through a door and, after a second, returned with a full unopened bottle of rum in one hand and a shot glass in the other. He placed both down in front of Berdly.
Now, kid, what are the magic words?
The older bird monster sitting beside Berdly began rolling. Berdly gripped the tight fabric of his jeans in irritation, curled his talons angrily, and grit his teeth to stop himself from yelling at the man.
Thank you.
He begrudgingly replied. Berdly swiftly moved to grab the bottle and the shot glass and quickly poured himself a shot and drowned it in a single swift motion. He exhaled as he put the shot glass back down.
So, kid, what brings you to a dingy old place like this?
Berdly poured himself another cup of rum.
I'm not a kid.
He repeated irritatedly before downing another shot.
Wow, you're really going at it. Huh, that's probably not healthy.
The other man said, ignoring Berdly's response.
I don't care.
Berdly droned before he downed another shot of rum.
Listen, kid, if you've got a big problem, I don't think coming here and trying to drown it in rum is the best idea.
Berdly growled as he swallowed another shot of alcohol. He straightened himself and turned to the man sitting next to him.
Shut up!
He yelled. The entire bar went quiet as his voice reverberated off the walls and everyone turned to face him.
Calm down, kid.
I'm not a child!
Berdly cried out as he rocketed his feathered fist into the man's face. After a second of stunned silence, the fiery barkeep picked Berdly up by his cuff and carried him towards the door, resisting his incessant struggling and flailing, and tossed him out onto the street like an odious garage bag. Berdly landed harshly on his ass on the hard pavement and took a tumble, leaving him spread out on the sidewalk. The barkeep wiped his hands as if here were handling a plague-ridden rat before quietly walking back to the bar and calmly closing the door. with only the familiar bell chime to tell Berdly of his departure. As the crestfallen and humiliated Bluebird lay out on the streets, he could once again hear the warm sounds of conversation and laughter erupt from the bar. Without him, he stayed down on the floor for a while, dazed.
Well, well, well!
A familiar voice broke him out of his brain fog.
Looks like someone dropped their
Frozen chicken, $9.99.
on
The streets.
Truly, what a tragedy!
Berdly pried his eyes open, and after a delirious moment of blinking away his astigmatism, the shape of the person speaking became clearer. The signature shades and slicked back hair, not to mention the annoying voice, was hard to misplace.
What's wrong?
Little sponge.
Spamton asked.
Did the big one kick you down again? Leave you out to dry like an unwanted rag?
The shady dealer shook his head.
Tisk tisk.
Come on, friend.
I know you were.
Looking for a little slice of in there. You're looking for the sweet freedom sauce, aren't you?
Berdly groaned and shakily tried to stand up from his spot on the cement pavement. Spamton gave him a hand and helped pull him up. Berdly's head was swimming as he tried to process what the man behind him was suggesting.
Aren't you tired of always getting kicked down to the curb by those around you? Aren't you tired of people taking you for granted?
Berdly's delirious vision saw purple.
Yeah.
He sluttered.
Aren't you tired of being so small and insignificant? Clearly a man like you deserves so much more than getting tossed to the street like trash.
Yeah.
Don't you want to feel big again? Feel important again? Feel so big that you can stand up tall and look over the world like God?
Yeah.
Berdly replied triumphantly. The crazed salesman grabbed the drunken bird by the collar and pulled his shades down, revealing the greasy, unclean, and sunken skin around his eyes, one of which was clearly red or pink, perhaps due to some allergic reaction, and the other somehow yellow, and yelled in the other man's face.
Don't you wanna be a
Big shot.
Yeah.
Berdly yelled with fanatic fervor, entirely swept up by his unfettered emotion. Spamton let go of his customer's collar and composed himself once again.
Well, lucky for you, I have just the thing you need.
He explained before digging into the inside of his jacket. After a short moment of fumbling, he pulled out a small plastic bag with a pure white powder inside, and held it out to Berdly, as if he were tempting a dog with treats. Berdly stared for a moment, transfixed.
This is my
Special.
Gungadero. Just one quick whiff and you'll feel like the biggest son of a bitch to ever walk on two
Legs.
This here, it's powdered powder, my esteemed customer.
Berdly mindlessly reached out to grab it in his drunken daze, as if he were attempting to get his feathered hands on a Latino beauty's succulent buttocks. But before he could feel up a soft taste of heaven, Spamton snatched it away.
Of course, I'm not just going to give out a taste of heaven for free.
Free.
As you know, everything in life has a price.
Berdly whimpered like a puppy.
How much do you want?
50
Kroner.
please and thank you.
Berdly quickly pulled his wallet out of his pocket and handed the shorter man a $50 bill. Spamton snatched it in a split second like a starving man seeing a discarded cheeseburger.
Pleasure doing business with you.
Kid.
Spamton cheerfully said before stuffing the bag into the bird's pocket. He pat the taller man on the back in a friendly manner.
What now?
Berdly absent-mindedly spat unintentionally. Spamton laughed.
What now?
Now you're free, you son of a bitch.
Get wild.
You're no
Heart on a chain.
You're free to do whatever the hell you want.
Anything.
Fuck yeah!
the other man said before giving the wobbly, drunken, feathery monster a push, causing him to nearly fall.
Go crazy!
Big shot.
Berdly felt a certain freeing optimism blooming in his chest. He was free. He didn't need Susie, who dropping him like a child dropping an old unwanted toy over the smallest thing. He didn't need a child who'd only drag him down. He didn't need anyone. He felt himself begin to cackle at the thought. He was fucking free! He wanted to scream and cheer, and so he did. He turned back with a smile on his face.
Why, thank you, gentlemen.
He began before noticing a distinct lack of anyone behind him where the salesman used to be. Berdly shrugged and continued on his merry way, a smile larger than any he had had in years on his face. As he walked through the dingy, dank streets of New England with the newborn optimism abloom in his chest, his eyes caught sight of a glowing neon sign. "The Dark World," it said, the purple letters flickering on and off like the lights on the side of a car which he never used. Below it, a second line of text glowed just as brightly. X, X, X. It was a gentleman's club, clearly. A facility for the lonely and unhappy, the young and wild, and the promiscuous and shameless to all congregate over one common interest. The love of all that is lewd and indecent. A place like that would never have appealed to the Berdly of a mere couple of days ago. A man wholly committed to his wife and to all that is right and good and decent. But that wasn't the Berdly that was standing in the middle of this New England street on this gloomy day. This Berdly had nothing to lose and nothing to hold him back from doing everything his carnal heart desired. This Berdly felt the bulge in his pocket and in his pants, and pushed the shady door open with a deviant smile. As soon as he began to climb down the groany stairs, the loud sound of music bumped off the wall and reverberated in his soul. It got louder yet louder as he slowly scaled down the staircase, his excitement building. He parted a thin curtain that led into the main showroom of the club. Many lights were mixing and flashing everywhere, and many other men sat around the stage, cheering along with the music. The colorful lights illuminated the stage where a lithe and lanky monster performer with iridescent white fur was riding a metallic pole seductively.
Welcome to the Dark World, where your darkest fantasies come to life.
A gravelly and heavy voice said, suddenly snapping him out of his trance. Berdly quickly turned his head to face the source of the noise. It was met with a pure white face with strange configuration of features that caused him to recoil in a mix of fear and disgust. The man seemed to frown.
It is all right. I understand it can be quite a frightful sight. I had an accident back when I worked in the old factory many years ago. I took a fall where I shouldn't have, and well, never mind that.
Berdly looked away from the man, having no interest in his tall tales, and looked back to the dancer on the stage who was now spinning gracefully on the pole, a rousing slim physique on full display.
I see you've already got something else in mind.
The decrepit man said flatly. Berdly ignored him. His focus was entirely on the captivating monster that was enrapturing all onlookers on the stage. Berdly felt around his pocket, feeling both the distinct presence of his wallet and of the bag of heavens Spamton had sold him.
How much for some alone time with her?
Berdly asked, not looking away from the hypnotizing dance. His voice shook with giddy anticipation. The other man made a strange face, but quickly shook it off.
How much are you willing to pay?
The man asked grimly. Berdly looked back at the man, whose deformed face now held a sly smile. He pulled out his wallet and took out the final notes he still had wedged in there.
$45.
Berdly responded. The man's pale hands plucked the bills from the bird's hands. He then turned to the monster who had just finished the titillating performance, causing uproarious applause to erupt from the crowd. The man made a signal with his hand as the stripper looked over, beckoning the tired dancer to come over. Those shapely legs climbed out of the stage, gathering the money the audience had showered them in as they walked towards the two. Berdly couldn't help but stare. The man handed the stripper the money Berdly had handed him and whispered something in his sultry ear. After they parted, the beautiful monster turned to face Berdly, causing his heart to beat harder and his girth to throb almost as hard.
Hello.
The monster greeted, voice almost angelic to Berdly's ears.
I'm Rousey. How may I be of service today?
Berdly smiled smugly. He briefly thought about what Susie would think of him doing this. She'd probably be repulsed or infuriated. She'd call him a freak. The thought made him smile wider. The man led the two towards the backstage of the club, eventually finding a private room and opening it for the two. He put a pale, bony hand on Berdly's shoulder.
Have a wonderful time,
He said before turning to Rousey, his face stoic, and giving the monster a signal with his hands. Rousey nodded. Rousey graciously led Berdly into the room. The room was lit with a calming blue light and decorated very meticulously. It wasn't something Berdly would ever expect to find in a place like this. The room felt cozy, and the bed sitting in its center felt inviting. Rousey walked towards the bed enticingly. The white fuzzy monster looked back to Berdly. Those pink eyes made his heart buzz with excitement.
What's your name?
Rousey asked in a sultry voice.
Berdly.
Berdly.
Rousey repeated with a sexy giggle.
Well, Berdly, I'm all yours tonight.
Rousey said seductively before falling back on his soft bed, the slight part in those titillating legs, serving as a beckoning for Berdly to come closer. Berdly licked the lips of his beak. He hastily stumbled towards the angelic figure that lay upon the bed, presenting to him as if he were a child who'd wandered into the back of the bakery and found the hidden cake factory. Hungrily, Berdly grabbed the furry white legs that were served up to him on the bed and pressed them against his face. They smelled distinctly like strawberry. Berdly pulled the plastic bag out of his pocket and held it up, glancing at it.
Is that...
Rousey began to ask.
Cocaine? Yes.
Berdly snarkily replied.
Oh, you dirty boy.
Rousey sang seductively, causing more blood to rush to Berdly's Jonathan.
Do you want any?
Berdly asked.
No, thank you.
Rousey said.
The only drug I do is weed. It helps me relax.
Berdly shrugged.
Alright then.
Berdly said before grabbing a loose bill from his pocket and rolling it up.
Don't move.
Berdly grabbed the packet and ripped it open, carefully pouring the powder in a line on Rousey's outstretched left leg. Rousey frowned. The powder was bound to get mixed up with the white fur, causing a huge mess that will need to be carefully handled later. But Rousey was bound by the payment, so Rousey dampened that irritation. Berdly put the rolled up bill to his nose and snorted the whole line. As the near microscopic flecks of white dust entered his nose, he felt them ignite his insides like a slicing fire. He gasped for air as his lungs burned with a passionate fire, and his mind sparked as if he were Frankenstein's monster. He despised it when people called the monster Frankenstein. That was the doctor, after all, being brought to life by lightning from the heavens. His blazingly passionate eyes landed on the white monster laid bare before him. Berdly slowly crawled on the bed like a predator, slowly scaling every inch of Rousey to meet Rousey's face and those bright, pink, exhilarating eyes. Rousey blinked enticingly, eyelashes fluttering in a way that enamored Berdly. Berdly kissed the goat monster's lips passionately, his snake-like tongue wrestling Rousey's and exploring every surface in the mouth. After a long moment of making out, the two parted. After a moment of mutual gasping, Rousey spoke again.
What are you going to do with me now?
Berdly grinned deviantly, straddling his crotch up the monster's body until it was a few centimeters away from that fuzzy face. Berdly began to unzip his pants.
I have a few ideas.
Wait, you're telling me then? And then? No. How long? 6 hours? And then he put it in the... And then they... After that they... You're lying. You can't expect me to narrate this. This is absolutely preposterous. You're not paying me enough to read this out to the world. You think I want this on my resume? No, that's it. I'm done. You can find another fool to record this for you. I want nothing to do with this. I'm out. Get someone else to do it. You utter failures. And then nothing happened for 2 pages and 3 paragraphs.
Berdly woke up in a haze. It felt like his head had been hit by an anvil. He couldn't think straight, nor could he even remember where he was or what had happened last night. He slowly blinked the fog out of his vision and began to take in the room he was in. It was dark, with only a few dispersed candles around to give it any sort of lighting. He was clearly laying down on a soft bed, but he could tell it wasn't his own. This room was clearly not his either. He looked over to the side and saw the clear outline of a person next to him. His initial instinct was that it was Susie. It was nice to know that despite him being so disoriented, he could still count on her staying by his side forever. He smiled to himself and slowly moved his hands over to the lump beside him. He moved to caress Susie's powerful arms, but the ones he grabbed a hold of weren't as rough as he'd come to expect. They felt soft and flaccid. His hands explored further, eventually reaching the place where he could usually feel Susie's bountiful bosom, and was met with nothing but air and fur, and a moan from his bedmate. Berdly jumped back as the realization hit him. He had been sleeping with another woman. He had been cheating on Susie. Then another realization hit him twice as fast as the first. Of course, he hadn't been cheating. Susie was the one who left him. Berdly looked back over the shifting bed lump and huffed. But then, who is this stranger in bed with him? Berdly gripped a layer of warm fabric that covered the lump and quickly pulled it away, revealing the fuzzy white form of a familiar monster. The monster shifted uncomfortably as it roused from its slumber. Berdly looked all over his bedmate's glistening white fur, taking in their body. Unlike him, who was still wearing his underwear, this monster was entirely nude. As the monster turned lazily on their back, Berdly felt his throat clog up as the memories of last night that had evaded him quickly raced back to the forefront as his eyes landed on the white monster's crotch, where there limply hung a. Berdly screamed at the top of his bird lungs. His hideous shriek bounced off the walls of the room and spread to the corridor outside. Ralsei shot upwards in a panic and began yelling as well, causing Berdly to scream even louder. Without thinking, Berdly raced out of the shared room in a flash, with only his underwear to vouch for his modesty. As he ran out of the door, he ran into a familiar similarly hectic man of a pale complexion. The man grabbed Berdly by the shoulders to stop him from running.
What is wrong?
The man asked, his polite tone struggling to hold itself up amidst the chaos.
I'm not. I'm not.
Berdly stammered incomprehensibly. He felt bile thump against his chest as it rose from his stomach. Berdly held a hand up to his mouth before turning tail on the other man and running towards the nearest exit. He finally felt a breeze of the outside world hide him as he pushed open an old, heavy door. The air smelled off-yield, but at least it felt better than the asphyxiating and claustrophobic air of the inside of the club. He threw himself against the closest physical object and leaned against it with one hand, finally letting all the puke and gunk rocket out of his beak, leaving a rotten smell in the air and yet more rotten feeling in his mouth. Berdly spent a few desperate seconds simply breathing erratically and acting to calm down. He took a moment to take in his surroundings. He was in a tight alleyway, pressed up against some overfilled dumpsters. The early morning sun peeked through the crack between the houses that led to the alleyway and cars barreled past a road he could just barely see. Berdly looked back down to the hard pool of his own making. His heart froze as he felt a foreign feeling, the feeling of being watched and judged. He looked up, and his eyes locked with the deep red pupils of that all too familiar human. Berdly squinted angrily and snarled.
You.
Chris said nothing, merely just stared down at him.
This is all your fault.
Berdly yelled at the human as he still kneeled down in his own puke. Chris's face still did not shift from that heavy judgmental stare.
Ever since I first met you, it's all been your fault. Why do you haunt me so? What have I done to wrong you so much that you ruined my life in these horrid ways?
Still, Chris said nothing. Berdly pried his eyes away from the human's haunting red eyes. His brain felt like a ship lost out at sea, steadily being gobbled up by the waves of rage and regrets. He thought back to his childhood, a time before even Susie, a time before he cared as much about his future and his work. A time when he was innocent and naive. A time when he and Chris were friends. He remembers clear as day how they used to hang out all the time when they were young, how they'd go over to each other's houses to play games, or how Chris would come up with elaborate pranks for the two to partake in despite Berdly's usual reluctance. Where did it all go wrong? Berdly remembers. They used to be close. Much too close for Berdly's father to bear, and after a stern conversation, Berdly was tasked with avoiding him. It would be a lie to say Berdly did not also miss those simple times of his youth, holding hands with his once best friend.
Is that it?
Berdly asked hoarsely.
Is that why you torment me? Because I left you alone, and then once you thought you'd finally gotten back on your feet and gotten a new friend, I snatched her away as well? Is that why you loathe me? Is that why you haunt my darkest nightmares and most depraved dreams?
Berdly looked up at the human once again, the embryos of tears forming in the corner of his eyes. The human's gaze didn't falter nor did his expression shift.
Well, I hope you're happy. Because of you I've been reduced to nothing, less than nothing in fact. Now nothing but a slob and a useless... Is that what you wanted? Did you just want to see me suffer after what I did to you? Maybe you were right. Maybe there is such a thing as karma.
Berdly was quiet for a moment as he looked back down.
You know, despite all that, I still...
Berdly stops himself almost instinctively. He sighs, releasing the tension in his chest.
I can't believe I'm about to admit this.
He mutters to himself before carrying on.
I still sometimes wish we were friends. Those moments we were together, they were...
Berdly felt a stone weight press down on his chest as he attempted to spit out the final words.
They were the happiest moments of my life.
Berdly looked back up at the human standing above him. No reaction. Berdly chuckled to himself as another realization hit him.
What the hell, I have nothing else to lose. I want to put our past behind us. Everything is so different now. Do you think maybe we could be friends again?
Berdly asked. Chris's scarlet eyes stared at him for a chilling moment before the human turned around, walking out of the tight alley, out into the city street. Berdly pushed himself up off the ground desperately.
Wait,
he called out, but to no avail. The human kept walking, onto the sidewalk and then onto the road. Berdly chased after Chris, stumbling and crashing through a metal trash can as he crawled out of the dank alleyway, the contrastingly bright sun almost blinding him.
Chris!
He called out as he picked himself up off the pavement, recklessly following after the human on the other side of the cement road. Berdly, still in only his underpants, dove out onto the road desperate to reach out and to start anew after all he had already lost and thrown away.
I'm sorry,
he called out. That was the last thing the bird said before he was hit by a speeding automobile.
What was that?
Noelle asked, referring to the strange bump in their otherwise smooth trip. Susie, who was somewhat shaken, and was now holding the steering wheel with the grip of a gorilla, shrugged.
I don't know. Probably an animal or something. Raccoon or something. I don't know.
Oh, how terrible!
Noelle shrieked.
It's alright, Noelle. I know you're kinda icky about blood and stuff. You don't need to look.
Susie reassured her. Noelle sighed, still somewhat shaken.
Thank you, Susie. I must ask though, where are we going exactly?
Susie smirked.
We're going to Berdly's house and vandalizing it. That'll show him.
Vandalizing? That seems reckless and illegal.
Susie rolled her eyes.
If you help me, we can make out.
Noelle put on her robber's mask and began to dual-wield the graffiti spray bottle and used her horns to hold rolls of toilet paper.
Let's fuck that bird up.
Bird up.
Hello.